and welcome. My name is Morgan and this channel is storytelling of the disturbing, mysterious and supernatural. So if this kind of content is your thing, then don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for weekly videos. But for now, grab a cup of tea and get cozy as we get into today's video. So I've never been a fan of kids' toys. I find them pretty creepy, especially dolls of any kind. There's just something really unsettling about them. I've actually experienced toys that were apparently switched off and suddenly turn on and start making random noises. It seriously freaks me out. And you never know if it's just a glitch or if it's something more sinister. So if you haven't already guessed, we're delving into 3 stories about children's toys that are going to make your skin crawl. If you have kids' toys around, you may want to lock them in a separate room because you are not going to want to look at another toy after this. 90s for our first story about Robert, a haunted doll that now resides in the East Martelli Museum in Key West, Florida, that has allegedly caused a lot of accidents and strange supernatural activity. So Robert the doll was originally owned by author and painter Robert Eugene Otto, and for the purpose of the story we'll call him Eugene, as the doll's name was also Robert because the boy most likely gave the doll the same name as him. Eugene came into the doll's possession back in around 1904 when he was gifted the doll on around his 8th birthday by his grandfather, who bought the doll while on a trip to Germany. Now this is one rendition of how Robert came to receive the doll. There is another version that tells of one of the family servants giving the toy to him after she was fired for being found using voodoo, and apparently used some of this voodoo to curse the toy and to bring fear and discomfort to the family. I'm going to say the first version is probably the correct version, but you can never be too sure. So Eugene, who was the son of a prominent Key West family, lived in a large family home on 534 Eaton Street. It was said Eugene had an unhealthy relationship with the doll, who was dressed in a little sailor boy outfit, most likely Eugene's own, and he spoke to the doll in the first person like it was alive. Now, I suppose this isn't like super unusual because children do sometimes speak to their toys like that, but still it is a bit freaky. Anyway, strange occurrences started happening, and according to legend, the doll has supernatural abilities that allow it to move, change its facial expressions, and make giggling sounds. That's just a big note from me. Eugene could often be heard whispering to Robert, but apparently a deep voice was once heard answering back, and things started to get really strange. Apparently the doll had a hold over the boy, and violent commotions could be heard coming from the boy's bedroom on a nightly basis. Furniture was overturned and toys ripped apart. When Otto's family entered the room to find out what was going on, he was huddled on his bed, scared to death, and said Robert did it. I'm sorry, but I would be burning that toy and moving house. Robert the doll was eventually moved to the attic. However, the Otto family was said to hear Robert moving around at night as footsteps and giggling could be heard. Servants arrived but quickly quit their jobs, and apparently even an aunt died the same night that the doll was banished to the attic. Now, as an adult, Eugene kept Robert. He positioned the doll in like an upstairs window overlooking the street, but the local school children swore they could see the doll appear and disappear before their eyes, and people started avoiding the house. Eugene worked as an artist and later married Annette, who apparently also hated the doll and banished him again to the attic. Robert, of course, did not take kindly to being kept in the attic and requested the turret room as he wanted a window with a view of the street. Eugene spent all of his time in the turret room with the doll, painting and talking to Robert up until his death in 1974. And I'm sorry, but maybe this is a bit judgy of me, but an adult talking to its doll. Like, if I had a partner who spent more time talking to and spending time with his doll than me, I would be seriously reconsidering the relationship, and I'd be really freaked out. Anyway, Eugene's wife died just 2 years after Eugene, and I'm kind of surprised that she kept the doll around after he died. You would think with his death that she would have gotten rid of the doll when she could have, as she didn't like it anyway. So after both Eugene and Annette's passing, a lady called Myrtle Reuter purchased the artist's house and also became Robert's new caretaker. She said that visitors swore they heard footsteps in the attic and giggling. Some people claim Robert's expression changed when anyone bad-mouthed him in his presence. Myrtle said that Robert would move around the house on his own, and in 1994 she'd had enough of him and donated him to the Fort East Martelli Museum in Key West. That's like 20 years that she kept a haunted doll. There's no way I would keep something freaky like that for that long. No way. And it's interesting that she donated him instead of just throwing him away. He must have had such a reputation to be taken by a museum and displayed. Anyway, far from banishing Robert to obscurity, his arrival at the museum marked a turning point for the doll, and he became almost a celebrity status. Since Robert arrived, visitors have flocked to the museum to get a look at him. And get this, he's appeared on TV shows, he's had his aura photographed, he's a stop on a ghost tour, he's even inspired a horror movie. He has a Wikipedia entry and social media accounts, although I have this mental image of a doll typing away on his laptop, replying to his fans on Insta. It's a scary thought. You can even buy Robert replicas, books, coasters, t-shirts, and if you're feeling really adventurous, you can even volunteer to be locked in with Robert after dark. Like, honestly, who is wanting to spend a night in a museum with a haunted doll? I've watched enough horror movies to know what happens. So the museum did its own research and actually traced Robert's origins back to, and I may pronounce this wrong because I think it's German, the Steiff Company, and he actually was almost likely never intended to be sold as a toy, according to a Steiff historian, and that Robert was probably part of a set fabricated for a window display of clowns or jesters. So I find this quite funny, but visitors are actually given advice on how to approach Robert, to speak to him politely, and to even ask for permission to photograph him. Despite this though, visitors still claim they've encountered misfortune, accidents, relationship breakdowns, and even experienced death and disease in their family after visiting Robert. And they end up sending letters to seek forgiveness, and according to the museum, he gets probably 1 to 3 letters every day. The museum says they have received more than 1,000 letters, which they keep and catalogue. That's pretty crazy. He also receives emails and gifts. At some point it became known that Robert has a sweet tooth, so people send and leave him sweets. Guests also leave him money and occasionally joints, which the museum says is completely inappropriate. The curator of the museum says Robert is now 117 years old and lives in a new display case which was recently donated by someone who is a fan of Robert's. It has humidity control and UV filtering glass to preserve him, but this hasn't reformed Robert. The museum still gets regular reports of evil, and even staff at the museum claim that Robert has been found in different positions within his case. Footsteps have been heard around the museum at night, and that his expression has changed from neutral to nasty in the blink of an eye. So, what are your thoughts? Would you spend a night locked in the museum with Robert? That's one big nope from me. Our next story takes us to Latin America, and just south of Mexico City is an island by the name of Isla de las Muñecas. Hope I didn't butcher that. So the story goes the land had a caretaker by the name of Don Julian Santana Barrera, who apparently over 50 years ago sadly found the body of a young girl drowned in mysterious circumstances. Shortly after her body was found, he discovered a doll floating in the same area of the drowning, and assuming it was the young girl's, hung the doll up in a tree as a sign of respect. However, after this, things took a weird turn, and friends say that Julian was apparently haunted by the spirit of the girl. He was very marked by the fact that he was not able to save the girl's life and started hanging more dolls in an attempt to please her spirit. Now, I don't know if he was around at the time she died, maybe he was in the area and blames himself for not being there to help or something, but either way, it would be devastating to find anyone, especially a child, in this way. Apparently, he believed the dolls themselves were possessed with the spirit of the dead girl, and continued to collect hundreds of these dolls, hanging them over the entire island. Julian found these dolls lying around or in the waterways. He didn't clean or fix them up, he just hung them up with missing eyes, limbs, and covered in dirt, which added to their haunting image. Those close to him said it was as if Julian was driven by some sort of unseen force that completely changed him. After 50 years of collecting dolls and hanging them on the island, Julian was also mysteriously found dead in 2001, drowned in the exact same spot where the little girl had died. It's enough to have an island filled with hundreds of creepy dolls everywhere, but local legend says that the dolls move their heads and arms and even open their eyes. Some witnesses also claim that they have heard the dolls whispering to each other, while others who were on a boat near the island said the dolls actually lured them to come down to the island. Despite this, the locals have faith that the Isla de las Muñecas is a charmed place, and after Julian's death in 2001, it has become pretty famous and a tourist attraction, where visitors bring more dolls. I'm not sure that's needed, but okay. So, have you heard or have you been to this island? Would you go and see the dolls? I actually think I would go check this out if I was in the area. I might add it to the bucket list. I feel like it's freaky, but it's not as bad as spending the night in the museum with Robert. You might think it's just creepy old dolls that are haunted, but our last story is going to make you think twice about that. So on Christmas of 2013, a Houston family gifted their young daughter an Elsa doll. You know, the one from Disney's Frozen, which came out that year. The doll recited phrases from the movie such as "Let it go" when you press like a button on its necklace. The mother, Emily Madonia, said that the doll did that for 2 years in English, but then suddenly in 2015 it started alternating between English and Spanish, even though there wasn't a button that changed languages. Oh, okay, that's not that scary, as it could be a factory fault or something, so it's not that strange, right? However, in over 6 years of owning the doll, they never changed the batteries, and Elsa would begin to sing and speak even when switched off. I actually think I'm more surprised that they never had to change the batteries, because seriously, I've never heard batteries lasting that long. Jump forward to December of 2019, and the family decide to get rid of the doll. Again, I'm not sure why everyone always keeps these creepy haunted dolls way longer than needed. I would have thrown that thing out way before the 6-year mark. Anyway, back to the story. The family threw the doll out with the rubbish. However, a few weeks later, found the doll inside of a bench in their living room. So it's made its way from the rubbish that would have been removed by the bin men to the living room. The mother said that the kids insisted that they didn't put it there, and that she believed them because they wouldn't have dug through the rubbish outside. So now the doll's back with the family, and Elsa stops operating in English completely and only speaks and sings in Spanish. So once again, the family attempts to throw the Elsa doll out. Madonia's husband double bags the doll and places it at the bottom of the rubbish bin to be taken away on rubbish day. So the doll's been binned again, and the family went travelling and forgot all about it. But, you've guessed it, when they got back, the daughter found the doll outside of their house. I think I would have cried at that point. So the mother went onto Facebook to ask for help, as she didn't know what else to do. Obviously, some people put out that it could be a prank. However, she said the doll had a mark on it from where her daughter coloured it in over the years, and that definitely it was not a replacement because of this detail that no one else knew about. Finally, a family friend, Chris Hogan in Minnesota, agreed to have the doll mailed to him. This friend was like a Facebook friend from an online running group, and neither him or the mother, Emily Madonia, had each other's home addresses. So she mails the doll to a PO box without a return address. When the doll arrived, he shared on Facebook that he taped the doll to the brush guard of his Jeep, and that if anything weird happens, he's wheeling her into a steel pipe and sinking it in the lake of the woods. And that sounds like a plan to me. But here's a final thought to keep you up at night. The mother said that when she was packing up the doll in a box to mail it to her friend, it started laughing for 30 seconds straight, and that it had never done that before. If that doesn't give you chills, I don't know what will. So that's all for today's video. I would be really interested to know if any of you have had any weird experience with kids' toys before. Drop a comment down below. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and thank you for joining me. Don't forget, if you did like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe for more creepy content. But for now, I'll see you guys in the next video.